Imagine we are flying into an airport which has got radar and all the facilities that it can cater for commercial flights. And a couple of miles away, when you are in the descent or in the cruise, and you're told that the radar at the airport of your destination has malfunctioned, means there is no radar. So you programmed for a particular approach and you are hoping to be vectored for the landing, but all of a sudden the radar equipment has malfunctioned. So in that case, what do you do? What we're going to demonstrate today is such a scenario where you don't have radar, but also, to make it more interesting, you don't have an FMS. So your FMS on board the aircraft has also malfunctioned. And this is quite a hypothetical scenario, but we can consider it that it can happen, where two major things which are needed for the approach have malfunctioned, and you're left with what you call raw data. So let us now talk of raw data, and before that, let me try and first of all explain to you a plate, an ILS approach plate for an airport which we normally train on, and it may make sense to you on how we do this sort of procedure. And then we will jump onto the Microsoft Majestic Dash 8 Q400 simulator, and it also presents a real world situation on such scenarios as well, with a few modifications, but the idea would just be the same. So come along and let's see the chart first of all. Okay, so what you see on the screen here is a chart that we use for the Addis Ababa Airport, Bola International Airport. I'm not going to go through all the briefing here because that's a separate topic, and obviously you may find many other resources that tell you exactly how to brief all the charts and all the boxes and the like. We will be interested in this part of the chart where we see a procedure that has to be followed to do what you call a full ILS approach for runway 25 left in Addis Ababa. So if you see this part where the cursor is moving, the frequency for the ILS is 111.5. The frequency for the VOR Alpha Delta Sierra is 112.9, which we're going to set obviously on the communication and the navigation box, the ARC-DO. So what's going to be happening is that the aircraft will be coming in from the northeast. We just pick up this scenario for now. So we're coming in, let's say, from the northeast, and somewhere along the path our FMS has switched off, okay, has malfunctioned, which means that we don't have any magenta track and any other details that are relevant from the FMS. And then we're going to follow the path going overhead the VOR. Okay, so what's going to happen is that we'll go raw data, meaning blue needles on the Q400, and as we do that on the simulation, I'll be talking to you through that procedure. So we're going to go all the way and go overhead the VOR. We have to be at the VOR at 14,000 feet. Okay, and since we're heading towards the southwest, we'll be cruising at 24,000 feet, which will be our cruise altitude that we chose when we departed from our destination, whatever it was, from the northeast. Okay, so obviously there is no VNAV, there is no LNAV, means that we have to do all conventional type of navigation. So we're going to go overhead the VOR, make sure we have to be here at 14,000, and the golden rule there is to do 24,000 minus 14,000, which is 10. We omit the 3 zeros, times 3, which is 30. And from your resources, you are familiar, or you should be familiar, or you must look at other YouTube platforms that describe the 3-to-1 rule. So 24,000 minus 14,000 is 10,000. Omit the 3 zeros, it will become 10 multiplied by 3, that's going to give you 30. So approximately 30 nautical miles as we approach the VOR, we will start our descent in vertical speed, which will be like 1,000 feet per minute, and then we'll be doing a profile check to see if we are on our 3-degree path all the way down to the VOR. Once we reach the VOR, we have to now decide on how we're going to make the whole procedure, and that takes us to the next page, which is here. And you can see that the aircraft here is in green, and I just took out the VOR and the holding pattern over the VOR here, and I pasted it on a separate sheet so I can just explain the basics of the 3 types of entries. I'm not going to go into other 2, whereas I said that most of these are to do with other material, which you can definitely go and read about what a direct entry is, what a parallel entry is, and what for our case will be the teardrop entry, because we are coming into the teardrop sector. Okay, so the teardrop entry, we're going to fly all through until the VOR, and then we have to decide on what heading to take once you're over the VOR. Now, the acronym that is mostly used worldwide is LARS. So it means left, add, right, subtract. And now what do I mean by that? The left and the right are the turns that are published over the beacon. In this case, you can see that it's a right hand pattern. Can you see that? It's going to 092 over the VOR, then it goes a reciprocal of 272, and so on and so forth. So it's a right hand pattern. Okay, so for right hand patterns, we subtract. What do we subtract? We subtract 30 degrees from the outbound heading. If it has to be a left hand pattern, we would add 30 degrees again to the outbound heading. Okay, so in this case, we're going to subtract 30 degrees from 272 to give us 242. So when the aircraft comes here, we're going to go heading select, and then we're going to track that heading of 30 degrees to the outbound for 1 minute, depending on wind. So let's say here the conditions were good. So we're going to go 30 degrees to the outbound, which is 242. And then thereafter, we're going to make a right hand turn, heading select to 092. You see? And then we go over the VOR. Okay, we don't have to do the full hold again. We just have to know the entry. And then once we over the VOR, then we follow the 092 heading all the way down. And then we go back here again. So from here, we're going to go 092. Our category is category Charlie. And then we're going to go from 14,000 all the way down to 11,200 until 12 miles. India Alpha Alpha, which is our ILS frequency, or 13 DME Alpha Delta Sierra, whichever one you want to use there. And then we make a left hand turn, and somewhere along the turn here, we're going to engage the approach mode so we can capture the localizer and the glide slope. And then we'll set an intercept heading here, which will be approximately 30 degrees to 252 again, which will be 282. And then we're going to intercept that localizer, and then the aircraft will fly that all the way down to the landing. We will not do all the landing and all that. We just want to show the procedure on how we can actually establish ourselves exactly on the glide slope and the localizer. That's very, very important. Okay, and the chart, as I've said, it's better to have if I can just do that. Sorry about that. If I can do this, and you may be able to take a screenshot of this chart so you can even follow through the whole procedure as we'll be flying on the simulator. So that's basically about it. Nothing much. If there's anything else we'll be talking about, it will be done in the simulation that will be showing in a couple in the next slide from now. So let's move on. Okay guys, what you see on the screen here is a setup of the Majestic Q400 that I talked about in the previous slide. And before we unfreeze the simulator, I just want to take you through a few things here. So I've just popped up the PFD, the MFD and the ARC2, and then I have the FGCP visible on this side. So just to have controls be seen, so we know what we're doing as we proceed with the procedure. Right now, as you can see, the aircraft is in heading select and alt, and we maintain 24,000. We have set our ILS minimums for ILS Yankee runway 25 left as per the chart, which is 7,793, but 7,800 to the nearest whole number, which is 7800 to the nearest 100. This part is showing blue needles, the compass rose, and the blue needles are specifically for performing raw data approaches. And you can see a message here which says GPS integrity, which means that we don't have the FMS. The FMS has messed up, has malfunctioned, so we cannot use the FMS. And currently we've positioned ourselves to be around 46 miles from the Alpha Delta Sierra. Now on the MFD we have the display here, but we don't have a magenta track that takes to our destination, as you will be familiar with, because we don't have the FMS. You can ignore this part here, it's not meant to be there, but this is an older version of the Majestic, so that most of the stuff, almost everything, does resemble the real world situation, but some of the things like delays and sensitivities are always going to be a problem, as you might know, those of you who do use such software for certain practices to maintain your proficiency. And here on the ARC2 I've got the Alpha Delta Sierra 112.9 and the 111.5 for the ILS. This is the Alpha Delta Sierra, the VOR, that's the ILS. So all of everything is set mostly. Now we can just talk a bit on what we're going to do. So the first thing is that we have lost the FMS. What do? We've got to still be able to navigate to the destination. And from your flight school days, you may remember a technique called homing. So we're going to be homing into the VOR. To do the homing method, what we're going to do, we will tell the aircraft, let's maintain the same radial, so the aircraft follows the same radial all the way to the Alpha Delta Sierra. That's why this is very important. You can actually see Alpha Delta Sierra here, and this one can be adjusted on the range button, range knob on the EFIS control panel, which is here. So I can increase or decrease it, and the data button I was talking about was this one here. We have to press it twice to get these indication nav data, nav and airport rather, so that all the nav aids around in the vicinity of your flight are shown. That's very important. So I've just put this on an 80-mile range here, which gives you 40 miles here, and we should adjust this as per our preference as we continue the flight. So we, having done that, now what we can do, we can talk a bit on what we're going to do. So we are 24,000 feet, and we're meant to be over Alpha Delta Sierra at 14,000 feet. So your 3-to-1 rule says you'd find the difference between the two, omit the zeros, the 3 zeros. So 24 minus 14 is 10, and then 10 times 3 is 30. So approximately 30 nautical miles DME, which is here, you will start your descent. But we do have a headwind of 20 knots almost, so that what we can do, we can delay the descent to 28 miles. 1 mile for every 10 knots would be a good calculation to do. These are all rough calculations. As you know, in aviation we don't be on the dot. We always do rough figures which are near and near the accurate ones actually. So the first thing is first, and then we have to look at our rate of descent. Now another rule says 5 times ground speed. Ground speed here is approximately 330 knots, okay, which we definitely find by subtracting the true airspeed, the headwind and the true airspeed, which we find the ground speed. You can see the ground speed is less than the true airspeed because of a headwind. If the if a tailwind, it will be more than the true airspeed. So these are your basic CPL notes or PPL notes rather as well, that you can get from. So we'll go for 5 times ground speed, so approximately it will be 300 knots. Let's use easy figures. So 300 times 5 will be 1,500 feet. So when we reach the 28-mile distance, we're going to go vertical speed, and we'll set the vertical speed to 1,500 feet per minute. Then we've got to do a profile check to see whether we are high or we are low. And how do we do that? Well, we can break it down into, let's say we can make a check at 20,000. So at 20,000, for example, you'll be 20 minus 14. Remember, we have to be at 14,000 over Alpha Delta Sierra. So 20 minus 14 is 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. So when I'm crossing 20,000, I must be around 18 miles. If this reading is more than 18, means I'm low. If it's less than 18, means I'm high. I can make another check at, let's say, 18,000. So 18 minus 14 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Again, I have to be at 12 miles here when I'm crossing 18,000 feet. And so on and so forth. You can be doing this all the way until Alpha Delta Sierra. Sometimes you may not get bang on. Sometimes you may. It all depends on the wind changes. And on this software, obviously, you may accommodate the sensitivity issues. So as much as we try to be accurate, but we can, once I unfreeze the simulator, it may go here and there, but we make sure that we are somewhere around 14,000 off Alpha Delta Sierra. If we are getting higher, it's better to be on the high side. No worries, we can still descend in a hold to 14,000 before we commence the approach. Not an issue at all. So, and if we are low, that's a problem. We can correct it because it's not very good to be low in a mountainous region where terrain is a factor. So we'll see how that goes on this simulation, and then the basic idea is exactly what I've just said. So let me unfreeze the simulator, and then we can see what we can do. I just want to adjust this a bit lower. I don't need to see all the buttons and the knobs because I want to see my torque indication on the ED here. So just to see how it's doing when we bring the power levers to flight idle as we commence our descent. I hope that's making sense so far. So let me now unfreeze the simulator, and I'll try and put it to around let's say just near 30 miles, somewhere around there, so we can quickly show the procedure instead of waiting for us to get to 30 miles. So I hope everything has been making sense so far, and then we'll continue. So another thing, yes, I've got to do, wow, I could have forgotten this, is that of course I've got to go to 14,000. So I'll have to set here 14,000. So there I go. I'm going to set 14,000 on with the altitude knob here. 14, got to be a bit careful here, it becomes a bit very sensitive. So 14,000, there it is, with all cell. So everything is set. Now one more thing we need to do about homing. Let's talk about the homing before we do any other thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate the course knob and see what happens to this display here. I'll rotate the course knob so that the CDI centralizes, pointing towards Alpha Delta Sierra. It will point towards Alpha Delta Sierra. Oops, it's just gone a bit, just sensitivity again. There we go. There, somewhere around there. This is perfect. Okay, so it won't point to Golf Whiskey Zulu because that's not the frequency that has been set. We've set 112.9, so obviously it will be the radials are going to be detected from Alpha Delta Sierra, which is somewhere here. Now once we do this on this aircraft, we go ahead and press the nav button. Here it is, nav. So if I press nav here, now it becomes VOR. So it means that now the aircraft is tracking a VOR radial, which is down here, this is 40, 50, just around 54, 054 radial, somewhere around there. It's tracking that all the way to the Alpha Delta Sierra. Okay, and so everything there has been now set. Last thing, we did talk about the teardrop entry. So we're going to come on a teardrop profile, and we worked out using the acronym LARS over Alpha Delta Sierra. It's a right hand pattern, so we subtract 30 from the outbound heading, which is 272. by now you have the chart or a copy of that chart, which I did tell you to make a screenshot of it. So 272 minus 30 is 242. Now because the heading isn't doing anything, why don't I just set 242? If I set 242, 248, 7, 4, 242 like this, what I've done here, I've just pre-selected the heading, and once I'm overhead Alpha Delta Sierra, what do? I'm just going to press heading select, and that means the aircraft is going to turn to the heading of the teardrop entry. This is just like being ahead, and you can only do these things, like people tell you be ahead of the game and be ahead of the aircraft and whatnot. You only do this when you keep on doing these things and your experience builds up, so you don't have to panic at all. Right, everything has been set up. Now we're going to unfreeze the simulator and let's get flying. So the aircraft is turning there. It's trying to intercept the radial. As you can see, it's turning. So it intercepts the radial. There we go. It's trying to intercept the radial to home in to the VOR. Once it picks up that radial, it's going to maintain that course all the way to the VOR, as you can see. So I'm not going to align my heading back because we've already discussed that we have to be over the VOR, and then from there onwards we're going to take a heading of 242. Now, being ahead again of the game, let's remember we're going to go overhead the VOR, heading 242, time for 1 minute or at least 1 minute and let's say 10 seconds because we're going to head with. Okay, and after that we're going to make a right hand turn. Remember, it's not a parallel entry where the turn inside the hole is opposite. It will be a right hand turn on a heading of 092 heading. Okay, so we're going to heading 092 after 1 minute and 10 seconds being overhead the VOR. So coming up 38 miles now. Let me just try and increase a bit of the range. Let's put it somewhere there maybe, so that we don't get fooled on how close we are to the beacon in a sense. Okay, so coming up 35 miles now, and what else can we talk about here while we are still maintaining course? So everything is set, you see, there is nothing to panic about. You've aviated, you've navigated now. Now you can communicate. You can tell the tower that okay, we're going to do a full ILS procedure, and we'll call you once we establish on the ILS profile. And that's it. Your height has been, just take a quick check again, height has been set. We will not go and land or configure. There will not be such things. We don't need to do that because that's not the purpose of this exercise. The purpose of this exercise is just to do the raw data approach all the way to intercept the profile. But obviously the configuration will come at its proper positions. Like for example, leaving Alpha Delta Sierra, you can go height pumps on, flaps 5, speed 170, and then you descend, and then once you do the procedure turn, you intercept the final approach, the course, and then 1 dot gear down, and so on and so forth. So here we go 30 miles. I'm going to go vertical speed here. 29 miles. Yeah, now I think I can do vertical speed, and I can go all the way down to 1,500 feet per minute. And I can come back on the power. If I don't go in the red tape, you can see the simulator is so sensitive here. There we go. You see, this shouldn't be happening though in reality. But anyway, there we go. Alright, so 20 miles, we agreed we should be 20,000 feet rather, excuse me. I must be at 18 nautical miles from the Alpha Delta Sierra. Let's see how it works. So I've come back on the power. I want to maintain 200 at least, possible. So let's see, that's 26 miles. And so far so good. When I cross, if I can make a check to 22 miles as well, 22 minus 14 is 8 times 3 is 24. You can see I'm almost around there. I'm 24.2. Okay, 24 miles, somewhere around there. So still a bit better. I'm a bit high, so I'm going to increase my rate of descent slightly to maybe, let's say, 1,800 feet for now, because I'm a bit high. You see, at 22 miles I was meant to be at maybe 2 minus 4, 8 times 6, 24. I'm at 22, 2 nautical miles. Now at 21 miles, 21,000 feet, I keep on confusing this, 21,000 feet, 21 minus 14 is 7 times 6, 21. So you can see 21 is coming up now, and I'm plus 21,500. So I'm going to be a bit still higher, so I can just go a bit to maybe 2,000 feet. Let's come back on the hours, so I don't increase this too much. There you go. 20,000, 20 minus 14 is 20 minus 14 is 6 times 3 is 18. Let's see at 20 how much we're going to cross. Okay, so coming up 25 again, 18 miles. I'm 500 feet higher all the time for some reason, but it's okay, that's fine. 19,000, 19 minus 14 is 5 times 3 is 15. Let's see when we cross 19,000 here. Let's see what we're going to get there. We should be getting 15 hopefully. So let's see what happens then. Okay. Getting there, getting there, getting there. Now we're getting low, you see. 15 coming up now, almost at around 19,000. So doing very well. 18,000, 18 minus 14 is 4 times 3 is 12. So when I cross 18,000, I must be 12 miles. And once I get that sort of figure, then I can reduce my rate of descent, because I know I'm on the profile, I don't want to go lower than that. Old sail is set at 14,000. So there we go, coming up 18, let's see 12, if it's going to give us 12 here. Oh wow, you can see now. There we go, 12.3, 12.2, 12.1, 12 at just around 18,100 feet. Very good. Okay, and then we continue doing that. Let's just increase our range again so that you can see further. Let's do that. I'll really get it off the display now. So once we are nearby, at least we are able to monitor. Right, so now we're coming at 17 minus 14, 7 minus 4 is 3 times 3 is 9. So it's passing 17,000, I must be 9 miles. And look at this. Okay, this is going pretty much perfect. Okay, there we go. At 17,000, exactly 9 miles. Nice. Okay, so you can see 16,000, and I pass 16,000, 16 minus 14 is 2 times 3 is 6. So now I can see that I'm on the profile. Let me reduce my rate of descent now, because otherwise I'll go very low for no reason. So I'm going to reduce it to maybe 1,300. No proper figures here, just something. So 16 minus, there we go, 6 miles. Okay, perfect. And now 15,000 is just, I have to be at what? 15 minus 14 is 1 times 3 is 3. So crossing 15, I must be at 3 miles. And look at this, I'm coming exactly over it off of the Sierra, after which I'm going to go heading select, and we're going to pick up the heading of 242, which has already been set here, and then we're going to fly that heading outbound in the teardrop sector for an hour, a minute rather, and 10 minutes, 10 seconds, and tongue tied. Okay, there we go, look at this, 15,000, exactly 3 miles. How good can we be on a good day? All good. So 1 to level with all sail coming up now. There we go. You can see now in the zone of confusion here, so the needles have disappeared. Okay, once we overhead the VOR according to this, we're going to go heading select, and I'll prepare my stopwatch here so that I can at least time once we overhead the VOR. So now coming up overhead the VOR, we can start taking the turn now in a moment. There we go, almost full, all captured. Look at this, all captured over Alpha Delta Sierra, 14,000, perfect. So heading select, there you go, heading select is set, and I'm going to start once the brings the level at 242, somewhere around there. And what we can do now, to put the power up a bit because all captured. There we go, and timer is started. You start the timer. I'll try and maintain 200 knots all the way. Okay. So now while I'm here, I can definitely set the next spot you have to descend to. As I said, always be ahead of the game. So I'm going to set 11,200, which I start descending to after I pass the Alpha Delta Sierra again on the inbound. So 11,200 with all sail. Okay, and my approach course, final approach course, is 252 from the chart. So I'm going to set 252 because nothing's being done by the course right now. And timing approaching 45 seconds now. 252 is set. There we go. So everything is set. Okay. And my cursor will be the heading knob now. So you see, in less than 1 minute, we can do all the presets. This is what we call what the instructors say, or the pilots say, playing ahead of the game. Okay. So now we're coming up 1 minute and 10 seconds now. There we go. Now I'm going to steer the aircraft on a heading of 0902. 092. There we go. 050. And here the clicks on the mouse pad here. And 9192. What I'm going to do now as well, while the aircraft is turning, I go up a bit here and just increase as I can see Alpha Delta Sierra where it is. Okay, there is Alpha Delta Sierra. Just keep it like that. That's perfect. Alright, there we go. You can see the CDI is moving now for a correct sensing. Frequency is set. Speed is good for a configuration. 182. I'm just going the slower speed here. Now I will try and go overhead the Alpha Delta Sierra. So let me first of all do this. So I must keep the dotted line right over the symbol for the beacon, so I don't miss it. And as I'm approaching ADS, Alpha Delta Sierra, I must try and continue increasing my heading. And you can see this is a very good example, an exercise that I've tried to do. Alright, still more. You can see 2 now, another 10 degrees. Once I'm now 10 degrees here, I should be heading straight overhead to the Alpha Delta Sierra. 90, 91 and 92, 092. Can you see here? 092 is set. Look at your charts and you'll see that's the heading we've got to pick once we overhead the Alpha Delta Sierra. And once overhead Alpha Delta Sierra, what we're going to do, we're going to start descending. So if you look at your chart again, I'm going to still use apparently what I can do, I can just change this frequency now to ILS frequencies. Okay, once I'm over Alpha Delta Sierra, because now I don't need it, so I'm going to use 12 miles in the Alpha to descend to be at when I'm at 11,200. I can even use the same Alpha Delta Sierra, and then it will have to be 13 miles from ADS. Okay, so we can choose one of the two, but to make matters easier for us, what we can do, we can just set the ILS frequencies here, ILS 1 and ILS 2. ADS still remains here the way it is, not a problem, but now I'm going to use ILS DME, which is going to be coming here. Okay, let's increase the speed slightly. Right, coming up overhead, Alpha Delta Sierra 092 heading, and the aircraft symbol is somewhere exactly over ADS. It tells us that we are overhead the beacon itself. And apparently the VOR DME is also here, VOR1, VOR2. Right, we overhead now. I'm going to go vertical speed. Oops, that's a wrong push there. Vertical speed, you have to be careful what you're pushing. And let's try and go down to maybe 800 feet per minute, because it's a very small sector. So there we go. and we're now going to descend, keeping the speed at least the lower side. 11200 is set with all cell. Post 252 is also set. I don't want to increase my speed too much for configuration, because now I'm just aiming to be at 12 miles here when I'm 11,200. So maybe this rate of descent might be a bit I don't level off. I can, it's not an issue, but you just drag the aircraft and then you burn more fuel, and the company people start to clean it out, which is not nice. So I can just reduce my rate of descent to stretch my profile, my glide. Just judging here that I must be at 12 miles in the Alpha here when I'm crossing 11,200, after which I make the procedure turn for the intercept heading. The intercept heading, you know, the final approach was on your chart says 252, which is here. We'll make a 30-degree intercept to the right, which is 282. Five miles, 13,000 feet, not bad. Speed is 190, I'll keep it at 190. By now I've already configured, just assume it's all configured, like gear height comes on, flaps 5, but I'm not doing that, because it's not easy to do without a first officer, as you might understand. So I'm just showing you the basic navigations here. I'm coming up 7 miles now, passing through 12.5. So you can see that 5 nautical miles apart, and here it's around 1,200 feet apart. Okay, and now coming up 9 miles, I can just increase a bit of my rate of descent here. Because I'm approaching 12 miles now, you can see it's just 9 miles coming up. So I want to even speed up my descent, so some way we can connect the two, meaning the altitude 11,200, want to load all cell, there we go, with all cell perfect, and there we are. I think at around 12 miles, somewhere around there, we should be hitting 11,200. Maybe a bit further, just a bit further. But here, 12 miles, we can't waste time. We have to start our turn now to the intercept heading, because what the profile says, and we'll cover the rest of the little descent in the turn. We can do that. So here we go, 282. My intercept heading is there, and once I'm on that heading, I'm going to go ahead and press the approach mode. So it means I'm taking the aircraft. I'd like you to capture the localizer and the glide slope. Here we go. Alt is captured, 11,200, just in the procedure turn. Excuse me. Alright, now I can see the localizer is assessing correctly. Can you see that? We are coming in from the south, and we have to intercept the localizer to the other side, which is here, and this is staying there. Once you are satisfied with this and it doesn't move, you can go ahead and press the approach mode. So approach mode, you can see here, localizer is armed, and glide slope is also armed. Alt is captured, meaning I can now set the next altitude to descend from the glide slope downhill, which is 9,900. Here we don't do all cell, because this is a glide slope capture point, so we don't need to worry about that. Again, no configurations here. I just want to see what's happening. You to see what's happening, because we now intercept the glide slope on the localizer. So now we are waiting for this needle to start moving inwards, and once it starts moving inwards, we will set the runway heading. Keep your eye on this needle here, CDI, and see glide slope is being captured here, almost. We're coming in from below, but of course not a localizer yet, so the aircraft can still go and capture localizer first, and then once it's at a good distance, it will start descending down here. Let's see. Most of the time it's just a game of patience, so you just have to be patient. Glossop is going away from us slightly, but now you can see, there we go, Logan Glossop is captured. I'm going to set runway heading, it is 252. So 252 is set now, and now the aircraft will start calling for altitudes and the like. So let it intercept, there we go, descending nicely on the profile. Oops, the speed shouldn't be like that because I'm not configured, so it will be high speed as you can see, but we're just ignoring that for now. The main idea, as I keep saying, is how to intercept and follow and fly the pattern. Okay, the configuration is another thing that of course you have to do in the real world, but if you know the procedure in this way, at least it makes your life easier. So there we go, coming up 9900, and that's the point from where the aircraft is going to follow the glide slope. Slightly to the left of the localizer here, I'm pretty sure that the aircraft will try and capture it. This is a simulation, so as you know, it's sometimes a bit delayed, and it's got some sort of sensitivity issues as well. There we go. I just increased the range a bit. Oops. Okay, that is all. So that's all now. You don't need to worry about it because that's a simulation problem. But otherwise, that's how we actually fly the raw data approach. So we have localizer which was captured but never showed here. So now what I can do is that if I can just remove these, and then if we want to see ourselves where we are, can you see that we are almost somewhere in a perfect world? In the real world, obviously the aircraft would capture the center line correctly. Okay, maybe I should have given it a bit of an intercept heading to the right and then press approach mode again. That would have been a good idea as well. But nonetheless, at least now you know how to go about following the raw data approaches. So the terrain you can see on the simulation here, there's terrain here and quite a bit of terrain at the back there as well, and on the right hand side is pretty much hilly. Okay, so that's basically about it for this presentation. Hope you have learned something, and till the next time then, wishing you luck, and stay safe, happy landings, and do consider subscribing to this channel. I'll be making up some more other interesting videos as I learn. We always learn as pilots, we never stop.